The Remarkable People Podcast. Check it out. The Remarkable People Podcast. Listen, do, repeat. For life. The Remarkable People Podcast.
Hello, friend. I'm David Pasqualone, and welcome to this week's Hanging Out with Liam Naden. Today, you're going to hear from Liam. He's one of 8 children from New Zealand, the oldest, and he came from an Irish Catholic family. And as he's working through truth in his life and looking for success and fulfillment and joy, he tries to test God and say, hey, if you're real, then blank. You know, we hear about people doing this all the time. Well, when it doesn't happen, it sends Liam in a search for what he considered truth. And he ends up discovering that in the course of his life, he has great success, and then it all comes crashing down. And then as he reinvents himself and starts moving forward again and growing in that professional area, he starts seeing the correlation and finds there's 4 chambers of the brain and how they work and how they affect us, and how the Bible, everything in it, it's the best mental health book there is. It's the best roadmap to decision making. It's the best instruction book on life. So even though he claims and talks about himself how he's not necessarily a follower of Christ at this point in his life, he does admit that the Bible is dead on, spot on, and the best thing we can read and do to improve our lives. So whichever way you're coming at this with a worldview, Liam is a serial entrepreneur. He's an author. He's a coach. He puts together curriculums. He has his own podcast, and he's here today to help you understand your life, your mind, and how by certain changes that we can make, we can start living our biological purpose, which he'll explain in this episode. And then he'll also help us to be the best we can be and live stress-free. So at this time, the Liam Naden story. Hey, Liam, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you, David. Great to be here and talking with you.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. I just told our remarkable community in the introduction just a little bit of what to expect in this show. And out of your own mouth, we're going to get into your past, go through to today from birth, and then transfer into the future of where is Liam and where is he heading. So not only did you help us, but now we can help you hit your next goal. But before we do, for the listeners, if they were to get one message, what message do you want them to walk away with after this interview?
That we're a lot more than we think we are, and that we're biologically designed to be successful. But we just need to realize that if we're not as successful as we want to be, we're not using our natural machinery the right way.
Excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard the excitement from me in the intro of what to expect. You've heard Liam directly of what to expect. Now let's get into seeing how Liam became the man he is today and the journey God used to bring us together. So, Liam, at this time, where were you born? What was your upbringing like? 2 parents in the home, 1 parent, orphan, siblings? What was your story starting off right at the beginning?
Okay, well, I was born in New Zealand. I spent most of my life living in New Zealand. I no longer live there, but spent a lot of my life there. And I was in a very loving, large family. My parents were Christians, Catholics, and so I'm the eldest of 8 children. So we were brought up in a very religious household and a very busy and noisy household, as you can imagine.
Yeah, to have 8 children. And then were both of your parents from New Zealand, or where were they from?
Yeah, both of my parents were Kiwis, originally from Irish, hence my name Liam, which is an Irish name. So I have Irish ancestry and English ancestry as well.
Yeah, and
as
Irish
well as New
Catholic,
Zealand.
8 kids, that explains it too, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, my father always said that he had heard that the Pope had come out with a statement which said, "Now, come on, lads, we've got to outbreed the Protestants."
Yeah.
So he decided that he'd do his bit and have 8 children.
That's
Of course, he
great. So
found the Pope hadn't said that at all. But anyway, that's another story.
what about for you and your family? Like you said, it was busy, but were you guys close? Was it a huge separation between you and the younger children? Or did you guys all have really a close-knit family growing up?
Yeah, we were all pretty close together. I think there's 12 years difference between the eldest and the youngest. So yeah, we grew up as a close family. Had a lot to do with each other. It was
Okay.
good.
And then from your childhood, as you transition into your teens, again, we don't want to dig for things that aren't there, but was there anything as we transition through your life in your teenage years that you want to discuss or bring up, or something significant that developed who you are today?
Well, I think the most interesting thing for me about my childhood was really the pattern that has determined the rest of my life, and that was I was always trying to be the best person I could be in terms of being successful, being happy, achieving goals, if you like, even from a fairly young age. And I've throughout my life looked in all sorts of different directions to try and find the answer. How can I be the best that I can be? How can I be in control of my life? How can I have a great life? And of course, the first answer I got to that question was as a young child from my parents and my teachers and the people in the church who said, well, if you want to be happy and if you want to have anything you want in your life, the answer is very simple. You just pray to God and ask for what you want and he'll give it to you. And in fact, I actually tried that out. I tested that, and that's been another pattern in my life is to really, when I come across something that I think might be something that could really help me, I really try it. I give it a go. I really go after the idea and explore it as thoroughly and test it out as much as I can. And I think I must have been about 10 years old and I thought to myself, well, if you pray to God and get anything you want, I'm going to really test this one. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to test God. And I can't remember what it was that I was asking for, but I decided on something very specific. And I went to early morning church every day for a month and asking God for this specific thing. So I went to early morning mass in the Catholic Church. And I asked, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was winning a competition at school or something like that. But I thought, if I ask for this every day for a month and show God that I'm serious, then surely he'll give it to me. And that didn't, I don't think well, I know I didn't win the competition. So it got me thinking, well, maybe there's something more to this, or it doesn't really work. But it really set me on a journey to explore all sorts of different things, from personal development, self-help, spirituality, psychology, philosophy, religion, to try and figure out the answer as to who we are, how we get the results we do, and how we can create a great life. And that's really brought me through right to the present, which is what my focus is now in quite a different area.
So once you came to that moment in your life, that really is a crossroads. Did it start to waver your faith in God and or the Catholic Church? Or was it just, is there more to this? Where were you at that point?
Well, I started to look around. It got me questioning it. And I started to look around and I thought, my parents, my teachers, the people in the church, they're not actually any happier or more successful than anybody else seems to be. They've all still got problems. They've got stress. They don't seem to be happy all of the time. So maybe this isn't the answer. Or if it is the answer, then maybe we're all doing it wrong. But whatever it was, I guess you could say, yes, I did question it, because it didn't work for me in its entirety. Now, I've since come to understand what prayer actually is from a scientific and biological perspective, and why most people aren't getting what they're praying for, because they're actually using the God-given machine that we've all been given to get the results we want, but we're all using it the wrong way, which is why it's not working properly. But back then, yes, of course, it got me to question things and then move on to try and find the answer in other areas.
So where does a young Liam go? You're questioning other areas. You're in, school, you're about to either go into the workforce or university, but you're still seeking that truth to happiness. So what path did you take?
Well, the next path I took was somebody told me, or it might have been my parents, I can't remember who, but I got the idea. The key to being happy and successful is to get an education. Because when you have an education and you're an expert and people will look up to you, and you'll be able to get a really good job, and you'll be able to be happy and earn lots of money and all those sorts of things. So I actually went to university, and I studied at university for 7 years full time. And I became quite an expert in my area of study, which was actually music. And but the thing I noticed was, even though I really enjoyed it, and as I say, I became, I got a lot of knowledge. But again, I looked around my teachers, professors, other students, other people who worked in the music world, and other people who were very educated, if you like. And I thought, well, these people know a lot, and they've certainly, their education means they do know a lot, but they don't seem to be any happier or more successful or feeling more fulfilled in their life than anyone else. So maybe I'm not going to find the answer here either. Maybe the answer isn't education. So from that, I actually went straight into my own business, because the next thing I'd heard, and I think it was an uncle who'd told me this, who was successful, he said, Liam, if you really want to be happy in your life, you should have your own business, because then you can make lots of money, you'll be in control, you'll be the boss, and that's the way to do it. So that's what I did. I went and established the first of my many businesses that I've had throughout my life. I think I had about 18 different businesses over the course of my life. And that's what I did. I got into business, and I not only built my own business, I studied business. I studied marketing, sales, finance, management, everything I could. I went to courses on business. And at the same time, I was also starting to study the whole personal development field, because I'd heard that as well. These people standing up on stages and saying, I've got the secret to success. Do my seminar, do my course, take my program, read my book. And I went to seminars all over the world, and I was the person who read all the books. I did the programs. I bought coaching programs, and I studied everything from goal setting to changing your beliefs, reprogramming your subconscious mind, doing affirmations, positive thinking, all of these different things. I studied all those as well, alongside developing my own businesses. So I was both a student of success and a practitioner, if you like.
Yes. And when you were, after, we want to go chronologically through your story, but at the same time, without overlapping and ruining what's to come, after building 18 businesses, what's your tips to the audience, to our listeners, to see opportunity and to seize it? Are these things you just saw financial opportunity? Are these areas you were passionate about, then the money came? How did you identify first what business to start?
Well, they were sort of based on things that I was interested in, combination really of things that I was interested in and opportunities that seemed to come along. But just to slightly jump the gun, I've really had two separate lives when it comes to business, because in my mid-40s, I went from being a multimillionaire and very successful to actually losing everything and becoming homeless. And how I've rebuilt my life after that experience has been completely different to how I ran my life before that. And comparing the two, I would say I'm far more successful, quote unquote, now. I feel far more in control of my life and knowing that I'm doing the right things and being much happier than I was before that happened in doing it a different way. So it's really to say I've done it all the same way. I'm not sure if that's what you mean.
No.
It's two different ways.
Yeah, no, what we're going to do is we're going to go from that 20-year-old Liam through today. And what I was talking about is what experience and knowledge did you gain on that journey that you can impart to our audience to do it the quote unquote right way or an even better way. But before we get there, let's talk about that. From you just finished 7 years in university, and then your uncle says, start your own business. Let's just move forward in the story with that. Like from that point. So you get out, your uncle says, start a business. What kind of business did you start? Where did your life go from there?
I actually started a wine business.
Oh, nice.
One of my developing passion after music was became wine, and so I opened a wine shop and a retail shop, and then I got into that really expanded into importing and doing mail order. In those days, it was called mail order, and I suppose it still is in some ways. And speaking about wine, teaching about wine, writing about wine, it was a consuming passion. So that's really what I did for about how many years? At least 10 years while being in the wine business. That was my first passion, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And then along that journey, you mentioned you had businesses, you were successful, you made millions, and then you went homeless. So bring us through the success to the point where you went homeless and then how you got back on your feet.
Yeah, well, it was in my mid-40s. As I say, I thought I'd achieved a respectable amount of success. I had multiple homes. As I say, I was a multi-millionaire. I had multiple homes, multiple businesses at that time, and things were going pretty well. But there's one thing that was happening in my life all of that time that I couldn't quite feel comfortable with, and that was that I always had problems and stress. And it got to the point where I believed what all of the books were telling me, or a lot of the books and a lot of the people were saying, which was, if you want to be successful, problems and stress are just a part of the game. You have to accept that's the price you pay for success, is that you're going to have problems and stress in your life. And you also, to be successful, need to overcome adversity. You need to struggle. You need to overcome huge challenges and fears and do all these things and struggle to be successful. Now, what I discovered subsequently is, of course, none of those things are true. In fact, from a biological perspective, they're completely at odds with who we are. We're not designed to struggle. We're not designed to have problems and stress. But that's what I had a lot of. And I'm sure many of your listeners can relate to this, is that you're on this roller coaster of things are going well, and then you set higher goals for yourself and you achieve them, and you're dealing with all these problems and that keep coming at you out of left field, as it were, all the time. And this is just your life. It's this roller coaster of feeling good, achieving things, feeling good sometimes, but lots of problems and stress just keep coming along, whether it be with staff or personal situations or in an aspect of your business or whatever. So as I say, I bought into this idea, well, this is just how life is. And then, of course, I lost it all and became homeless, and I had to literally move back in with my elderly mother and sleep on the sofa in her living room in her small apartment. So that was a fairly defining moment, because the most defining thing about that was I said to myself, how could this have happened to me? Because I know everything about how to use your mind to create success. I know how to achieve goals. I've done all the goal setting workshops. I know how to set goals and be really specific and have action plans and, control your thoughts and be a positive thinker and do all these techniques to affirmations and all of these things. But now I feel totally out of, firstly, those things haven't worked for me because I've lost everything. And that wasn't on my goals list to lose everything. And secondly, I don't feel in control of my life at all. I have no clue on what to do to get out of this situation. So that really got me puzzled as to why it wasn't working. It working for me. And it was really only when I got through it and life went in a different direction and I started to figure out why that was, why I'd, if you like, created a situation where I did lose everything, and why it didn't work for me to try and get out of it in the quote unquote traditional way.
Yeah, 100%. We're not just talking in this episode, in this podcast. Our listeners know it's not just about all the rainbows and butterflies. It's about the real life, the lows, the highs, the everything in between. So yeah, what caused the way down, and then how did you reemerge?
Well, without getting into too specific details about how I lost everything, it was really, in essence, a culmination of a lot of bad decisions, both in business and my personal life. And really everything just came all at once, and it all just collapsed, if you like. So it was a bit of a mess. But I did get through it, obviously, as one does. And as I crawled out the other side, what I did then is I started to rebuild my life and set up new businesses. And some of them are the things I'm still doing now, which is marriage and relationship coaching. I do a lot of that. And I have some online coaching programs and a podcast and all of it in that area. And also more latterly, things to do with how we achieve true success in our life the natural way, which is what I do in terms of my work with the brain. So I was starting to develop new businesses and new ideas. But the really interesting thing about it all was I was doing something completely differently. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I was doing something differently, because before I was chasing after success. It was like I was always going after the next opportunity, trying to figure out how to get more, trying to set bigger and bigger goals, always looking to make more money and do more things and all of those sorts of things. I was really chasing after success. And as I said, I had lots of stress and problems, as well as some success, obviously, as a result of all of that. But after I lost everything, things were going quite differently, because instead of me chasing after success, it was almost like success was coming after me. So instead of me going around and struggling to find things to do, people would show up in my life unexpectedly. I remember meeting a man I hadn't seen in 25 years and just in a shop. And he said, "Hey, hi, Liam. Hey, have you thought about doing this?" I thought, that's a great idea. So I did. I set up a little business as a result of what he said, and another wine business, actually, which was fairly short-lived. But all of these unexpected things started to happen and bring me good opportunities. And I started to get really good ideas as well about things to do. And everything seemed to just work. Everything seemed to flow much better. I was starting to earn money again, good money, to allow me to do the things that I wanted to do. And I was doing a lot of the things that I really enjoyed doing, like traveling and all of those sorts of things. But it was like it was coming to me. I wasn't struggling, because the other thing I noticed, and it was quite a while after, a couple of years later after this was all happening, I thought, this is really strange, because I actually don't have any problems or stress. I actually wake up in the morning excited about the day, not dreading opening my email. I go to bed at night really, happy about what the day has been like and looking forward to the next day, not worrying in a sleepless way about what the problems I've got to deal with. I don't really have any problems or stress. I'm working hard, I'm being productive, but I'm not dealing with these stressful situations. And I thought, this is very different to the old life when I was really struggling and with determination, if you like, with all these problems and stress. I need to figure out what I'm doing differently, because whatever it is this is finally working. I finally feel in control of my life. All of those promises, all of those things I'd been chasing all those years about feeling good, being happy, feeling successful, I finally feel like that. Life is working so much better. I need to figure out what's going on. And that, of course, sent me on a whole new journey of exploration of how we get the results we do. And that's really the basis of what I continue to do today.
And what is that journey? Because our listeners, they're connecting with you. They're hearing a lot of similarities. I do want to circle back though, because was it just you had success in the original business and it started coming down? Did you have marriage problems? Did you have drug addictions problems? Like, what took you from a growing business to the bottom?
Well, I had a number of businesses at the time, which for various reasons all started to fail at the same time. They were different businesses, but changes in market conditions, changes in operations, things like that, and also personal and relationship problems as well. That all played into it. I didn't really have drug problems or anything like that, but yeah, it was just that combination of personal relationship problems and business conditions, if you like to call it, but also based on decisions I made that didn't work out, and it all just sort of, you know, came crashing down in one big pile at the same time.
Yeah, that's how it happens, right? So now you're at the bottom, you meet a friend, he gives you some idea and advice, you take it, you run with it, you start another wine business and you start growing. And then as you're growing again, you're really not conscious of what's going on. But if I'm hearing you correctly, you notice one day that there's an absence of that stress, there's an absence of that anxiety and pressure, and you're actually just doing your best each day and accepting it. Is that correct?
Pretty much. Yeah, that sums it
Okay.
up.
So then let's do this. From that point in your life, how old were you then, or what year was that?
That was
Roughly.
about 2009.
Okay. So
Yeah.
2009, this is going on. But between that point and today, you unlocked the key. You figured out the difference, correct?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
take us from that point in your journey of how you figured out or what you figured out so we can glean from it and apply it to our lives too, please.
Okay. Well, I really thought to myself, what am I missing? Because I've studied all the personal development stuff. I've studied religion. I've studied psychology. I've studied spirituality. You know, I've done the meditations and everything else. What am I missing? I've got all this knowledge, but none of it really helped me. But what am I doing differently? And I thought, well, one of the things I actually found that I was doing in this new life is I was spending a lot more time in nature. And it suddenly occurred to me, I did something that very few of us actually do in our life, which is really strange. I started to look at what happens in nature. And I thought, if you actually look in nature, everything is successful, everything is perfect, everything just works perfectly. And in fact, there's been some research, or I read something recently where this author said nature is actually 98% successful. It has a 98% success rate. There's a 2% failure rate because, for instance, if a tree is planted in the wrong place, it might fall over, or, you know, things get washed away by storms or droughts or whatever. But there's a 98% success rate. And what it means is that biologically, in this world that we live in, everything is designed to be just what it is and to be perfect, to be successful. And the interesting thing about that is I thought, well, we're biological as well. We're a life form. We're like every other biological form. Is there some way or some purpose or some method or system that I'm set up biologically? Maybe that can give me a clue as to what I'm doing differently and what success, how you actually achieve success. And if you ask any biological scientist the question, what is the purpose of life? Because I thought, well, what is the purpose of my life? Well, what's the purpose of all life? All biological scientists will tell you that the fundamental purpose of life is to survive. It's to be the best that it can be so that it has the greatest chance to survive so that it carries on the species. And we're a biological species as well. Why would we be any different? We're actually wired exactly the same way. We are designed biologically as a species to be the best that we can be so that we have the greatest chance for survival. And unlike the rest of the natural world, two things. Firstly, we're not 98% successful, we're 98% unsuccessful. 98% of people are not being their best, being the best that they can be. They're full of stress and problems. So what are we doing differently to the rest of nature? Or do we have a different biological purpose? Well, we don't have a different biological purpose. We have the same. We're designed to be the best that we can be. And for humans, that doesn't just mean physically, that almost also means mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. In other words, you're designed to be your best emotionally. That's your biological purpose. That means being happy. That means without problems, without stress. That's your biological purpose so that you have the greatest chance for survival. Because that's when you do have the greatest chance for survival, is when you are at your happiest. That's when you're most resourceful, creative, all of those things. So I thought, well, this is really interesting. So my biological purpose is actually to be happy. That's what I'm designed to do. That's what all of nature is wired and designed and aiming for, is for everything to be the best that it can be, so that it has the greatest chance for survival. And then I thought, okay, there must be some mechanism that allows this to happen, because nature wouldn't just say that's your purpose, but there's no way you can achieve it. Nature must be designed to allow this to happen. And in fact, nature has provided every living organism with something that is specifically designed to ensure that it is the best that it can be. And for every living organism, that thing is the brain. Everything has a brain whose sole purpose is to ensure that that organism has the greatest chance for survival by being the best that it can be. And it's the same for humans. Our brain, we don't realize that our brain has only one purpose. It's to make sure, or to do its very best to make sure, that we are the best that we can be, that we're the healthiest we can be, the strongest we can be, and also the happiest we can be. That's our biological purpose, and that's what our brain is designed to do. But I thought, well, if that's the case, then, and that makes logical sense, why is it that 98% of people aren't the best that they can be? What's going wrong? Well, it turns out another really interesting thing is that the brain is just a machine. You know, if you think of it in machine terms, it's very clear to understand, because it's a bit like a motor car. A motor car is a machine that has a purpose. It's designed to do something. It's designed to get you from where you are to where you want to go. That's all it's designed to do. It will do it predictably, efficiently, and also enjoyably for you, the person using the machine. And you don't doubt that it's going to do it. That's its job. But what happens if you don't use it the right way? What happens if you don't drive it the right way? What happens if you don't put the right fuel on? And if you don't use it properly, you end up with problems. It doesn't do the job it was designed to do. It doesn't get you to where you want to go, and it doesn't give you a smooth ride, and you end up having to deal with all these problems and trying to fix it, all because you don't understand the right way to drive it. And that's what it turns out that problems and stress in our life actually are, is merely a symptom of the fact that we're using this machine the wrong way. Because when you use it the right way, you live your biological purpose, which is being the best that you can be. So when I realized that, I thought, well, the only thing you need to do, like with a car, all you need to do is figure out how it works, how to drive it, and let it do its job. And that's what I realized I was actually doing, without knowing that I consciously, you know, I hadn't sat down and read a manual on how to use my brain, and then everything happened differently. But I was using my brain in a different way, and I could see very clearly once I started to research this and go into the science of the brain and how it works. Yes, I was doing these things, and that's why I was getting better results. And that's the fascinating thing. The brain is literally designed, as I say, to make you have a happy, successful life. That's what its purpose is, so that you have the greatest chance for survival biologically. And if you're not getting the results you want, it simply comes down to a lack of understanding about how to use it the right way. Once you do know how to use it the right way, and you start using it the right way, it's amazing how quickly your life changes. You get back to your brain doing its job, making you the best you can be.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is the least understood part of the human body and being is the brain, right? And so you're learning this and you're tapping into this. So what are some of the basics that our listeners and myself can start off with? Like, how do we better understand our brain? How do we change the way we think so we thrive in life and have that natural success?
Well, it's actually, excuse me, quite cool in that it's not that complicated. Like a car, you don't need to know the name of every little wire and the technical name of every little bit and everything that it does. You just need to know what you need to know to get it working the right way. And that's the same with your brain. So I've actually created a model to explain how your brain works. And by understanding how your brain works, you automatically know how to use it the right way. Because, and I'm sure you'll be interested when you hear my model of how it works, you go, now I understand. Now I can see what I've been doing wrong. And then you're automatically going to start at least considering doing it the right way because you see how it works. So what I've actually created is a model of the brain, which instead of having all the technical words and jargon and explanations and scientific explanations of how it works, this just explains it in a way that people can understand very quickly and easily. So essentially, there are 4 parts to the brain. Okay, now the first part is what I call the thinking brain. And the thinking brain, which is physically located on the top of our heads, it occupies quite a large area. What this part of your brain does is it takes all of the information that's coming into your environment, into your life, if you like, in every second of your life, through everything, all your senses. So everything you hear, smell, taste, touch, see, any ideas you pick up, any thoughts you pick up, it's taking all of that information from your environment and it's storing it in this part of your brain. So that your thinking brain is essentially like a big library or a database, if you like, of all of the knowledge and information that you've accrued throughout your life up until and including this moment. So that's the first part of your brain, that's the thinking brain. Now the second part of your brain, which is physically located just below the thinking brain, this is called what I call the feeling brain, the emotional brain. And this is responsible, obviously, for how you feel. This generates chemicals which make you feel emotions. So everything from really good emotions, love, gratitude, happiness, all of those good things, to fear, anxiety, doubt, worry. This is all controlled by the emotional brain. It's obviously really important. The third part of your brain is the survival brain. And this is located at the back of your head, largely. And what the survival brain does, as the name again suggests, it looks after everything that keeps you alive on a moment-by-moment basis. So it's not things you're thinking about, but it looks after all of the mechanics, you know, your breathing, your heart rate, all of your organs, all of your bodily processes, absolutely everything that you don't have to think about or worry about, but just keeps you alive and going in every second. In other words, keeping you surviving. And there's one other really important function that the survival brain has, which is part of your survival, which is every now and then, very occasionally, certainly in modern times, you might be presented with a danger or a threat in your environment. So something might come along unexpectedly that has the potential to really harm you or even kill you. And what happens then is that the survival brain kicks in. It actually gets a signal from the emotional brain which says, danger, warning, you have to get rid of this threat immediately. And it activates what we often know as the fight, flight, freeze, or the survival mechanism reflex action towards danger. And you can imagine, the classic example is in prehistoric times, you're walking through the forest and a lion jumps out from behind a rock. So again, what the survival brain does there, it's activated in these moments. So your emotional brain creates a warning signal in the form of fear. And fear is the warning to your brain that you're facing an immediate threat to your survival or something that could harm you. So it activates your survival brain and you react. So there's the lion about to eat you. So you run away or you shout for help or you stand up and fight. But whatever it is, it's a reaction. And this is a function of your survival brain to get you out of that danger, that immediate threat to your survival, so that you can go back to being what you're supposed to be, which is being the best that you can be, being happy, in other words, and being your best. So this is all done by the survival brain. And obviously that's a really important function because every now and then, not so often these days, but certainly through most of human history, our environment has been a dangerous place physically for us. So there's the thinking brain, the feeling, emotional brain, and the survival brain. But there's a fourth part of the brain that science has only more recently started to discover and examine and realize this is actually a separate physical area or located in a separate physical area of your brain. And it's what I call the creative brain. And the creative brain is actually the part of your brain that is supposed to run the show, because this is the part of the brain that is there to make sure that you are the best that you can be. Because in your creative brain, this controls and manages such things as obviously your creativity, your imagination, your gut feelings about things. It's where you get this idea, that's a good idea, I'll do that, or that's not a good idea, I won't do that. those little aha moments that you have where you suddenly come up with a new idea, that something you've never thought of before, and that works really well. It's also the place where your motivation comes from and your determination. That doesn't come from fear. It comes from this place where you feel this real surge of enthusiasm and power and strength, and you make all the right decisions, and you don't make the wrong decisions. It's all guided by your creative brain. And in fact, your creative brain has the power, the ability, and the purpose not only to manage your internal environment, but your external environment as well. Because on a very low level of awareness, because that's the other thing the creative brain does, is it raises your awareness so you see the truth about things that you don't see when you're in a fear state of survival, which your survival brain is managing. But when you raise your awareness, you see the truth about things, and things that you otherwise might have called luck, coincidence, synchronicity, chance events. You go, oh, how did that happen? You realize these are all managed by your creative brain. It's actually literally, in a very real sense, bringing to you the right people and the right situations you need for you to be the best that you can be. So the way you're supposed to live, the way your brain is designed to be used, is you live in this creative state most of the time. And we have words for this: being in the flow, being in the zone. It's you're making great decisions. You're not making bad decisions. The right things are happening. You're being enormously creative. You're being resourceful. You're coming up with all these great ideas. You're doing all these great things, and you're loving what you're doing. You're passionate about it. That's the way you're supposed to live. That's you being the best that you can be. But there's only one time where you're not supposed to be like that, and that is on the very rare occasion that a lion jumps out at you from behind the bush or behind the rock. And in that case, what actually happens in your brain is your brain says, let's put that aside for a moment. We need to deal with this immediate threat, this immediate danger. And it activates your survival instinct, which is also called your sympathetic nervous system, and it takes all of the resources from everywhere else in your brain and in the rest of your body to direct at getting rid of that immediate threat or danger. It's what it needs. It needs every ounce of that it can take from anywhere else to deal with that danger. So where does it take the energy from? Your creative brain as well. What does it do? It shuts down your creative brain, because your creative brain is not of any help when you're facing an immediate threat. Looking at being optimistic and cheerful and seeing all the great possibilities of life is not only not useful, it could be dangerous. So what your brain actually does, it shuts all that down and takes that energy to focus on reacting to this immediate threat or danger. And the activator is fear. So when you feel fear in your life, which also includes stress, worry, anxiety, they're all parts of fear. They're all based on fear. When you feel fear in your life, what's actually happening on a biological level is your brain is saying you are faced with an immediate threat. There's something in your environment right now that has the potential to harm you or even kill you. And it puts you in this very narrow state of reaction to the situation and struggle and limited awareness. In fact, it only gets you to focus on the negative things of what's in your environment, because it's looking for the lion, it's looking for the snake in the grass. What other dangers are there? What else are there here? Its sole focus is it's been told that there is a danger there that needs to be eliminated. So it's looking for that danger, and it's reacting to try and get rid of it, so that then the brain can send the signal, the danger is gone, get back to, creative brain is reactivated, get back to being the best that you can be. But what's the problem? How are we using our brains the wrong way? Why are we 98% unsuccessful? Because what we're doing is our brain is telling us that there is a real threat to us when there isn't. It's making up lions in our head, and it's activating this fear-based state and keeping us in a reactive state. And we can't create our ideal life. We can't even solve our problems in that state. That's not what it's designed for. All of our problem-solving ability, knowing the right decisions to make, knowing the right things to do, knowing the right goals to set, if you like, that's all in our creative brain. We have no access to that when we feel fearful, stressed, worried, or afraid. And I realized that was the difference in what I was doing. My whole life was based on fear, stress, trying to get more and struggle. and I couldn't make the right decisions. I didn't have access to the part of my brain that knew what was right for me, knew what the right decisions were, knew who the right people were, knew what the right situations were, and would bring all that to me and make all that happen. I didn't have access to that. And that is the problem with most people today. And they're struggling to try and overcome their problems using the part of their brain that will never do it for them. It's not designed to do that. It simply can't do that. And that's what it comes down to.
And so when you first started describing the four parts of the brain, you said one's like the top, and then you said the second was below it. Is that like the front temporal lobe of the brain?
It's actually in the middle almost.
So like right here,
Inside your
temple
head.
to temple?
It's quite small. The technical terms, the two parts of your emotional brain are called the amygdala and the hippocampus. And they're two small parts which are sort of pretty well in the center of your skull, just under this top part, which is called the neocortex, for the technical words.
Okay.
And these are the functions of these parts. This isn't just an idea. This isn't just a sort of a mind and subconscious type airy-fairy idea. These are physically biological places where these functions take place.
Yes. Like you can dissect a body and they're there. They're physically there.
Science has measured what's going on in the different parts of the brain. Yeah.
Yeah. So with these four parts, and you're realizing that you can't stay and live in that, fight or flight. It's not productive. That stress is not productive. How do our listeners are taking notes right now. They're listening to you, Liam. What do you recommend? Hey, this is how you start the process of getting out of the wrong balance and getting into the right, getting out of balance into balance.
Okay. Well, the way to explain this, the simple answer, if someone came to you and said, we've got this new fuel for a motor car called hydrochloric acid, and it'll make your car go really well, and you know what hydrochloric acid is, and you know how your car works, you say, well, I'm not going to put that in my car because it's going to damage the car. And they say, look, everybody else is considering using this new fuel, and it's the greatest thing. And if you think there might be something wrong with it, don't worry. As long as you're motivated and determined and you pray and you believe and have positive thoughts, it's still going to, it'll be okay. Everything will be fine in your car. And you say, look, I don't know what planet you're from. You don't understand. On a physical level, hydrochloric acid is the wrong fuel. It's going to damage the car. Now, what's going to damage the machine of your brain? What's the wrong fuel? Anything that makes you feel bad, anything that makes you feel fear. So what's the answer? You've got to find ways to eliminate fear from your life. That's it. And it doesn't matter how justified you might feel by your situation. And people say, oh, well, it's all very well for you, Liam. You say you don't have fear, but I've got all these problems. I've got all this stress. I've got all these people I have to deal with. Sometimes it takes tough decisions. Remember, I lost everything to learn that you have to get rid of certain people out of your life. It was done for me, if you like. But when you understand that fear is the enemy, it's the toxic fuel. It's the part that puts your brain in the wrong in the wrong state. So you literally can never achieve the life you really want. When you realize that, you're going to say the first thing you need to do is find every way you can to eliminate the things that are making you feel bad from your life. And they include turning off a TV or a computer that's showing you something that's making you feel bad. Remember, feeling bad, it's the hydrochloric acid. That's it. Or it's avoiding a conversation with somebody who makes you feel bad. Maybe you might have to end a relationship with people who make you feel bad. Maybe you might have to change or end that job. Maybe you might have to close down part of your business or fire some of the people in your staff who it's not working. Whatever it is, when you realize what the stakes are, how high the stakes are, in other words, how your machine works, then you realize it's something you just have to do. And you can start small or you can start big. But what I've found, and I found this with my marriage and relationship coaching as well, when people really overcome their fear of they know the right decision, they know they should get rid of this particular situation out of their life, but they don't do it because they're afraid to do it. But when they really overcome their fear and do it, that allows and they stop putting this fear into their brain, their creative brain takes them in a much better direction, a much happier, more fulfilling, the right direction for you. In other words, your brain is going to do it. That's its job. So if you want a quick fix, and people want a quick fix, what do I need to do now? It's a bit like your son coming along who's 12 and says, can I take the car to the party tomorrow night? It's 100 miles away. You say, well, you don't know how to drive it. You can't take the car. He says, well, just give me a couple of quick tips on how I can get there, and then I'll learn how to drive it later. It doesn't work like that. There's no quick fix on using your brain the right way. But the one thing you can start to do when you understand this, is look for ways to eliminate things that make you feel bad from your life. So important. It's critical.
Yeah, and that's what this show is about. It's giving people that starting point so they can begin the journey, and then they can contact you or other experts in it to finish the journey. So now you have all this going on in your life and you're starting to see it. So as you develop and you're eliminating these stressors and getting rid of these things causing fear and worry, what happens to your life from there, Liam?
Well, things just go in a much better way. But you actually live life in quite a different way. And the way you live it is the way it says to live it in the Bible. And a lot of people, as I say, I was brought up a Christian. I'm no longer a practicing Christian, but many people are Christians and they do believe in the Bible, and that's great. But what they don't realize is the Bible is one of the best instruction manuals on how to use your brain the right way that exists. But people have never realized that's what it's actually saying. But what does it say in the Bible? And this is what you should do. This is what I started to do, what I still do, and what you need to do if you want to really unlock the life that you're supposed to be living. And that is, you need to do what the Bible says. And what does it say more than 360 times in the Bible? First off, it says, be not afraid, have no fear, have faith, believe. But it says, be not afraid more than 360 times, not as a suggestion, not as an idea, as an instruction. This is how you do it. It doesn't say, be a good idea, try not to be as afraid as you are, try not to worry so much. It doesn't say anything like that. It says, be not afraid, because when you are afraid, you are activating the wrong part of your brain. You're activating the survival part of your brain, which is only designed to deal with short-term, immediate threats and dangers to your life. It's not designed to solve your problems. In fact, it will create problems for you if you try and use it to solve problems. And that's what happened to me. I kept getting more problems. That's what happens. So it says that in the Bible. And the other thing it says in the Bible, which I can relate to a different way of living that is actually using your creative brain the right way, is that with understanding of how your brain actually works, what that generates is trust. You trust your brain, you trust yourself that your life is going to go in the right direction. Same with a car. You don't get in a car when you know how to drive it and hop out every 5 seconds wondering if it's still going to keep going. You just enjoy the ride. Same with your brain. And it says that in the Bible as well. Give no thought for tomorrow will take care of itself. Do not worry about what you shall eat, drink, or wear. These will all be provided for you. Look at the birds in the fields, how well they're provided. Aren't you much better than they are? You will be provided for as well. And that's how you use your brain the right way. When you understand how it works, you stop putting the fear in and you start allowing the creative brain to bring the right people to you, to bring the right ideas to you, to bring the right suggestions and decisions and actions. When you start doing that and trusting it, you don't struggle. You accept and you put in effort rather than struggle. And that's the way we're designed to be. We're not designed to struggle. There's no struggle in the natural world. Nothing struggles. There's life, death, decay, growth. There's no struggle. It's all perfect. We're the only ones who struggle, and we do because we insist on being in this struggle mode. We keep feeding stuff into our brain that locks us in struggle mode. We're not supposed to be like that. It's not, our brain just can't deliver, if you like, when we use it like that.
So when people are living in the wrong quadrant of their brain, I assume, so you're basically, what you're saying is that sadness, depression, the anxiety, the stress, the fear, that's where that all manifests.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what about
Because
oh, go ahead.
all of those things, and this is quite a deep subject, and I teach this in depth in my coaching program, but as to why this is, but every negative emotion that you have is based on fear. You think things should be different to the way they are. And the problem with when you live in those states is you don't see the big picture. And I know we've all got, everybody listening's got problems, and they're saying, well, I can't see a way to, I just want to solve my problem, and then I can be happy. But that's not really the way it works. You've got to get your creative brain working to solve your problem. Your creative brain only works through happiness. So you actually have to find a way to change your perspective, stop putting the negative stuff in, to unlock the creative brain to deal with your problems. That's the way it works.
And if our car isn't operating right, what's a good way to jumpstart it? How do we jumpstart us with happiness?
Well, again, wanting to jumpstart it is a bit like the 12-year-old saying, well, just give me a quick tip on how to get it over the hill to the party. It doesn't really work like that. It's got to come through understanding. But the real jumpstart is stop putting negativity into your life. Stop putting anything that makes you feel bad. Look at all of the ways that you have, and you do have the choice as to whether or not you're going to allow something that makes you feel bad come into your life. And that takes a bit of working out. You can't necessarily do it overnight, but you can turn off that TV show that doesn't make you feel good. You can actually shorten that conversation with somebody that doesn't make you feel good. You can actually change the subject from that subject that doesn't make you feel good. You can do all of those things. You do have a choice in those things. You might think they're a difficult choice, but they're not when you understand what's at stake. Your life is at stake. Your creative brain, which is what is designed, is sitting there trying to do its job, and you're blocking it from doing its job. That's what's at stake. Your life is at stake.
So from this point, you're learning this and seeing, wow, there's a lot more to this than what I've been told my whole life. Where does your life go from that point, Liam, through today?
Well, that's what really got me excited about all of this and wanting to share the information with others. And I started off doing it in my marriage and relationship coaching, because one of the things that always puzzled me was why some people, most of the people who come to me did and still do have got real problems in their marriage, and often, usually, their husband or their wife is asking for a divorce and they don't want it to happen. So it's a major problem. So I created some coaching programs based on a lot of research and personal experience and understanding of all of these things I'd studied on how you can get that result, how you can change your spouse's mind, or how you can heal your marriage, if you like. And there's some really great information in my coaching programs, and I know it works. But what puzzled me is why some people managed to achieve that result and others didn't. And I started to look at the difference, and I realized it wasn't to do with the amount of motivation they had, because everybody was very motivated to, if your husband or wife comes along and says they want a divorce and you don't want it to happen, you're motivated to really fix that problem. It also wasn't a question of the amount of information they had. I mean, I gave people all the same information. I still do. It's in my coaching programs. This is a formula, if you like, that has a very good chance of working. It works for most people if you apply it the right way. It also wasn't a question of prayer or determination or any of those things. Some people would pray a lot and not heal their marriage, and other people didn't pray at all and they did heal their marriage. So I thought, what's the difference? The difference was the brain state that people were using to address that issue. Were they using their limited survival brain state, which could never fix that problem? It's not what it's designed to do. Were they in fear and anxiety and stress about it, or were they able to unlock their creative brain? So what I realized was the gap is in how people can do this. Instead of having motivation and knowledge and information and all of those things, it's about being in the right brain state so that you can actually access all of that stuff. You can do all of the right things rather than doing all of the wrong things. So that's really where I transitioned from my marriage and relationship coaching into a broader area of teaching people all of the stuff about how their brain works and how to get it working right and how to use it the right way to get the results they want. Because as I say, it's nothing to do with, it's nothing to do with setting goals. It's nothing to do with telling yourself all these positive things all the time, or trying to tell yourself all the positive things all the time, because positive thinking doesn't work, does it? So it's nothing to do with all of those things. It's to do with simply how you're using this machine, whether you're using it the right way or whether you're not. It's a mechanical process. It's a biological process that is in harmony with the way all of nature works. So that's how I really, and I'm continuing to develop not only the research into how this works, but also explaining it in a better way. That's why I love coming on shows such as yours. It gives me an opportunity not only to share the information, but it helps me get better at sharing it, if you like. So it's part of what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, and you mentioned marriage counseling several times. Along your journey, did you get married? Are you married now? Because you brought that up, but we never discussed it. Where along the way did you meet your spouse?
Well, not that long after my new life started, I did meet somebody, yes, who was far more suited to me than anyone I'd previously met, because my creative brain found this person, if you like. Sounds a bit new agey. Some people have heard of the law of attraction, and it's not real. That's sort of partly what it is, but this is really a scientific explanation of what it is. So yeah, that was part of my journey, was meeting the right person for me as well, who I'm still with.
Beautiful. And then when you have a vehicle, you get tune-ups and you have regular maintenance. What are some of the things you do every day to stay in that creative brain?
Well, you don't need to do a lot. That's the beauty of it. It's like a car. You know that how it works. And so you treat it the right way and it works for you. But in terms of how you live this on a day-to-day basis, the two keys, one is to really be mindful of anything that might make you feel bad. Avoid situations that might make you feel negativity. I never watch anything on a computer, or I certainly don't have a television. I never watch anything that I think is going to remotely make me feel bad. That's it. Because if it makes me feel bad, it puts me in the wrong brain state. It's not me living my natural best self. So that's one thing I do. And as well as that, I also avoid any situation, people I choose and situations, if I think it's going to make me feel bad. And one of the great things with this is when you start using your brain the right way, when you're in your natural creative state, you get much better at following your gut feelings about things. Had an experience the other night, actually. We were in a town we hadn't been to, and we thought, well, I wonder if there's a restaurant. We looked up a restaurant, and we thought this sounded quite good, and we went around to it, and we walked in, and we just said to my partner and I, this doesn't feel right, does it? This doesn't feel very good. And we were really looking forward to going to that restaurant. So we just walked out, and we happened to walk across the road, and we went to this amazing restaurant that we weren't expecting to go to, that was far better. So once you start to use your brain the right way, you trust your intuition a lot more, and a lot of the right things happen for you a lot more as well, because you're not worried about whether something's going to work out or not. You trust the part of your brain is working for you to bring the right things into your life. So life becomes what it's supposed to be, an adventure, an exciting adventure where you can enjoy what you're doing in the moment, rather than a struggle where you're spending most of your time worrying about the future or having regrets about the past. Most of us aren't actually here enjoying life, being in the moment. We have our brain going off in all these directions and worried, and we're all stressed about these things. That's not how you're designed to live. You're designed to live like the rest of nature, being here to enjoy yourself, be the best you can be. You can only be the best you can be when your creative brain's working and you're here in the moment.
So you mentioned the law of attraction. Some people call it the secret, some people call it manifestation, but what you're discussing is more of the scientific explanation of how this is happening. And you said flat out, the Bible is the best guide for how to use our brain. And when people of all different philosophies and worldviews, if it works and it's truth, you can tie it back to the scripture. 100%. If it works, it's from God. So I guess if you were to explain again in just a summary, when people hear about the law of attraction or manifestation, and now what you're talking about, the creative center of our brain, where is that scientific balance that explains it all?
Well, the scientific balance is you have two mental and you have four separate functions of your brain: thinking, feeling, surviving, and creating. They're the four parts of your brain. And the way you're designed to live biologically is in your creative state, where you attract to you, if you want to talk about the law of attraction, you attract to you all the good stuff, all of the right things. But you can only be in that state when you don't feel fear. If you feel fear, you activate something that is only designed to get rid of an immediate threat or danger. And this is why so many things don't work for people, because they're trying to make it work based on fear. So they're saying something to themselves like, I am going to be a multimillionaire, or I am great, or I am this, I am that. And they're trying to convince themselves that it's true and think that somehow by repeating it 5,000 times that it's going to make it show up. But it never will if it's because it's based on fear. Most people are setting goals because they're trying to get something that will make them feel good to overcome the fear they're feeling right at the moment. So they're saying, oh, I've got no money and I've got this terrible life, or I'm in this terrible situation. Oh, I want to be a millionaire, so I'm going to set a goal of being a millionaire, and I'm going to work really hard and study and do all these things. But it's all based on fear. So you're not using the natural part of your brain, that the powerful part of your brain that will bring all the right people and situations. It will bring all the right information that you need. It will get you making the right decisions. This is why it doesn't work. You're using the fear-based part of your brain, which is very, very limited, and just simply can't do it for you. No matter how much no matter how determined you are, or how motivated, or how much you pray, you're just using your brain the wrong way. It's a little bit like if someone came along and said, well, I don't know how to drive a motor car, but I see it's got wheels. Maybe the way to do it is to get out and push from behind. So you get out and you see this person and they're putting in this enormous effort and they're trying to get the car moving. And you say, why are you doing that? Well, I'm going to get this car to 100 miles over the hill by tomorrow, and I'm determined, and I'm going to put in all this effort, and I'm so motivated, and I believe this is my goal. I'm going to make it happen. But it doesn't happen. The car hardly moves. And what happens? You get worn out. You get stressed. And what do you say in that situation? The problem is me. I'm not pushing hard enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not determined enough. I'm not motivated enough. So you put even more effort in. And you'd look at someone doing that and you'd say, that's utterly ridiculous. Why are they making it so hard for themselves? Why are they ensuring that they're not going to get to where they want to go, and that they're going to just damage themselves in the process? Why are they doing that? Of course, because they don't understand how it works. But we don't realize that with our brain. We don't say to ourselves, why am I struggling? Why am I pushing? Why am I doing all the things when there is actually an easier way if I just knew how to do it? It would be silly not to use my brain the right way and carry on struggling when I'm never going to get anywhere by doing it. The interesting thing, just to mention about goal setting, what's, an interesting thing, something your listeners could ask themselves, what of the goals that you set, what percentage of your goals do you actually achieve? Is it 90%, 95%, 80%? Or is it more like 2% or 3%? And for people who are honest, who've looked at this, people have discovered that only about 3% of the goals that people set, they actually achieve. Now, if we only achieve 3% of goals, there's something very wrong with the whole goal setting process, isn't there? It's a bit like if you go to a heart surgeon and say, what's your success rate on bypass operations? And he says only 3%. You're not going to get him. You're going to say, well, you don't know what you're doing. Your system doesn't work. But why do we all believe this thing about goal setting? when hardly any of it, when it just simply doesn't work for most people. It didn't work for me in my old stressed life. And it comes down again. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're using the machine the wrong way, you're just simply not going to get the result. That's it. It's a mechanical, biological. It's as biological as you walking out of a 10-story building and expecting to go up. You know you're going to go down. It's just one of the laws of the way nature works. It has to work that way. You could be motivated and pray and believe, but you're still going to go down. You know that. It's the same with the way your brain works. If you want to live the life you're supposed to be living the best you can be, you have to use your biological machinery the right way. It's the only way you'll achieve it. And the good thing is that's what it's designed to do naturally. So it's going to be a lot less struggle than you think. In fact, there's not going to be any struggle at all. There's going to be effort, but it'll be joyful effort rather than struggle.
So where is Liam today, and where are you heading? You've just given us a bunch to consider and apply. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, we're going to put your contact information in our show notes. But how can we help you, Liam?
Well, the best way people can help me is just by considering that maybe this stuff is worth investigating. Maybe there's something about your brain, maybe there's something about you that would be worth looking at in a different way. And really, my mission is to share this information with as many people as possible. Obviously, I have my own podcast, which is called Using Your Brain for Success. I've got a coaching program which goes into a lot more detail on how to actually use your brain the right way to get much better results and also to increase your understanding. But that's what drives me and is my passion, if you like, and is me knowing that I'm living the way I'm supposed to be living, which is sharing this information with people. And in terms of where I'm going to go, you know, the wonderful thing about living in your creative state, you don't have any goals. I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow. It doesn't worry me. I'm enjoying talking to you right now. That's all that matters to me. And sharing this with your listeners, and hopefully, you know, this information resonating with people and people being able to understand and think, well, maybe that's really helpful information. And I leave my creative brain to know, because why would I try and figure out what I want and where I should go when my creative brain knows it already? It not only knows what I really want, it knows how to get me there. It knows what I want in every moment. It knows how to make me the best that I can be. That's its job. So me trying to figure out what I want, and what the part of the problem with trying to figure out what you want and setting goals is you're using your thinking brain to do it. And your thinking brain isn't designed to figure out your life either. Your thinking brain is only a collection of all the information that you've gathered up until now in your life. But what you really want to be doing might be something completely different to what you've experienced already in your life. So that's when you get into this creative state, and this is the long answer of what I'm doing and where I'm going, is I'm going where I'm not going anywhere. I'm here right now. That's good enough for me.
Excellent. So between your birth and today, anything we miss, Liam, that's significant in your life, or a final thought you want to share with our listeners?
I think it's not really about me. It's about the listeners realizing there's a lot more to us than we realize. We're not this helpless victim of circumstance and situations, and and we're not designed to have a life of struggle. And I know that sounds really weird, and people go, he's talking about sitting on a cloud somewhere and chanting. It's nothing to do with that. This is living in the biological world. This is living an exciting life. This is being in the flow, in the zone. People talk about those sort of states. That's the way you're designed, and it is possible for you. It's not only possible for you, your brain, God, whoever you like to say, they're all screaming out and saying, please, can you just use this machine the right way? And you're going to have a completely different experience of life. And if you don't believe it, then the only way to believe anything is to do a little bit of research into it and then evaluate and think and decide whether that might be true or not. And that's what I'm trying to provide as information that people can go, well, that makes sense. I understand that. That's logical. It's not just some idea they have to believe or evaluate. So if you're not sure about something, maybe this is an idea that is worth a bit of investigation to at least see whether it's true or not, whether it's right or not. But the more you get into it, the more you realize this is all logical. This isn't some airy-fairy theory. This is actually practical. And that's when you can start to, really see the magic showing up in your life, which is what we're all supposed to have.
Yeah, results, fruit for our actions. So, well, listen, Liam, it's been great getting to know you. It's been great spending time with you today. And thank you for sharing such, wonderful information to help us reframe our minds and get balance so we can have a life filled in that creativity space and not in the fear. So I appreciate you being here. And to our listeners, reach out to Liam if you have any questions. Go ahead, after we hang out, try to start thinking and praying and meditating on what he's saying. And then, like our slogan says, don't just listen to great content, but do it. Repeat it each day so you can have a great life in this world and, more importantly, eternity to come. So, Liam, thank you again for being here. It's great hanging out with you. And I look forward to just catching up with you in the future, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really nice talking to you. Thank you.
Anytime. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you in the next episode. Share this with your friends and family, like the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And again, share some love with Liam and let him know you appreciate the episode. Ciao.
The Remarkable People Podcast. Check it out. The Remarkable People Podcast. Listen, do, repeat for life. The Remarkable People Podcast.